Kelly, in a society that seems to emphasize finding flaws and weaknesses in individuals and then prescribe solutions for those weaknesses, why should we instead focus on our strengths?
Such a good question, and something I really had to really understand myself, because I too, for so many years, focused on fixing what I wasn't good at. But the ultimate reason is there's data around this. Gallup has been studying leading with strengths and working with strengths for years. And what they found is that's where we're our best. When we look at what's right with people, instead of fixating on what's wrong with people, the data shows that our performance is better, our engagement is higher, we have glimpses of excellence in the work that we do that people notice. And we just feel better. We're more successful when we're focusing on our areas of giftedness. So the data's there, but I'm living the life of living in my strengths now, and I am the case study.
Yeah, so why do you think the world operates on such a weakness-driven mindset, though?
I think it's just how we've always been led, is look at what we're not good at. Individual development plans always focus on what do we need to get better at, and let's put all of our efforts there. I think it's just human nature. People look at what they don't have and they want to get better in those areas, and that's where we put all our time and energy. So I think it's something, for me at least, I was always focused on that because that's what someone focused on me. And so I thought that was the right way. That's what I focused on. And then when I was a leader, I started focusing on it as well.
So on the individual side, how do we get ourselves away from that weakness-driven mindset?
Great question. And it took definitely a mind shift for me to really get myself out of that. I have to fix myself. I really believe it started, at least looking at how I did it, was starting with understanding where did I really have the greatest potential to be most successful, and really taking a step back and looking at what that was, what those talents were, and then tracing that back to how has that always helped me be successful? It's always been there, but I never really connected it with what was it and what did I call it? But when I really look back, the gifts that I have, they've always been there. They've always led me to success. And when I've used them, I've always felt best. And so when I really started thinking about it, and also when I started focusing on areas that I wasn't good at, how was I feeling? And that really got me thinking, well, I just feel so drained. I just feel defeated. And I'm not really great, even though it looks like I'm good at things. But it's really that internal feeling that I got that, yeah, on the outside, it looked like I was good at something, but on the inside, I was feeling just absolutely depleted when I would focus on those areas.
I think there's only so much time and energy that you can give to being fully well-rounded too. At some point, we can't develop every single trait about us. There's going to be strengths. There's going to be weaknesses about us. I think that's just human nature. We're not 100% at anything. And if there's anybody listening who is, I would challenge that from the start. So I think leaning into your strengths makes a ton of sense. From a leadership standpoint, how do you then propose leaders start to coach their teams to focus on their strengths instead of weaknesses?
Yeah, they have to start with themselves, first and foremost. We can't lead others unless we really have found ourselves. And I didn't really understand how to lead myself. And when we really think about it, Brad, we're the hardest person to lead, ourselves. It's real easy to go tell other people what to do. But when we're looking in the mirror, and it's really, sometimes we need to hear the advice that we're telling others. We have to understand who we are, what we value, where we have the potential to make the most impact, and where we're going to show up and be our best. And as a leader, that's critical because the data's there too. 70% of employee engagement, it starts with leadership. And if a leader is going to work and they're not feeling engaged themselves, and they don't know how to find that within themselves, then how can they ever help a team figure out where they're going to be their best and have the greatest return on their time and energy?
I heard a really great quote. I'm a big fan of the Modern Wisdom podcast, Chris Williamson, and he had a comment about how you can say you want to be this type of person, but does your calendar match who you want to be? Does your weekly calendar, does your daily calendar match sort of the vision that you have for yourself? And I think in a lot of ways, leaders might say they want to be X, but then if you look at their calendar, they are drastically going down a path of Y or Z. How do you propose leaders sort of break out of that current, here's who I am and here's who I want to be mindset?
You have to take ownership of it. Nobody's going to do this for you.
Sure.
You might be the CEO of a staffing firm, or you might be a recruiter or a business development rep, but truly, you are the CEO of your life and your growth. And if you don't take ownership of what you can truly accomplish in your own self-development, then I find that you're just walking through life. You're living life, but you're not leading your life. Yeah. And when we focus 75% of our time during the day in the place we work and what we're doing, then what are we putting on that calendar? And I don't know about you or the audience that might be listening. Life is really short, Brad. And I want to live a life where I feel that I'm happy, and a little bit even more than that. Like, I really feel that I'm doing meaningful work. Yeah. And I don't want to spend 75% of my time doing things that really don't feel meaningful or purpose-driven to me because of who I am.
You can tell from my backdrop, I work from home, and my wife and we have this letterboard, and we just changed the message on that letterboard the other day. Today's are short, enjoy every minute. And we've found, now that I have a 2-year-old and we have another one on the way, that days are getting even shorter. And being intentional with every single minute is incredibly important to me. It's incredibly important to my wife because time flies. And Kelly, I think leaders, to bring this back to business, have to be incredibly intentional with that time.
Oh, absolutely. Leadership is, if not next to parenting and teachers, the most important job there is. And parenting and teaching is leading. So leadership happens in all areas of our life. And if we're not intentional in how we're leading ourselves, then going back to what I said before, if you're not able to identify who you are and see yourself and the gifts that you have, how could you ever help someone else find just the giftedness that they have within them?
You talked about being the CEO of your life and thinking about playing to your strengths. Do those strengths change over time? Or are you born with, this is who I am, these are my strengths, and this is what I will continue through the longevity of my leadership career? Or instead, do those sort of pivot?
Great question. So Gallup studied this over decades of research, and what they've identified is our true talents show up around the years of 10 or 11 years old. And that's when a personality starts to take shape and our strengths really start to show some sort of identity to them. And I can speak to this from a parent and for you as your child is growing up too. But I actually gave my sons back when they were 10 and 12 years old, the Clifton Strengths Assessment for kids that they designed. Okay. And I watched over a 6-year journey just from a parent perspective, but also a leadership perspective of how my children's strengths really have started to surface around that age. And over 6 years, how they've really evolved and developed. And that really got me thinking about my own strengths because knowing what my strengths are and then tracing them back to when I can recognize when they first showed up. I can think back when I was around 10 or 11 years old and how the ability that I have, my number one strength is being futuristic. So I'm a visionary. I see what can be. I see what can be created and how we can get there. And I started doing that when I was very young. It's not something I just woke up one day and had. It's always been there. And it's shown up in so many different areas of my life that the more I use it, the better I get at it. So I can tell you from my own personal experience and watching my children, that is an amazing thing to really trace back to your own identity as well.
Yeah, as you're talking about that, I was trying to think back to when I was 10, 11 and sort of the person I was then. It is very much the individual that I am now. A little bit older, maybe a little bit wiser, maybe not in some areas, but certainly there are strengths there that I can see in myself today. So that's interesting. Again, I'm sort of fixated on this thought of we're constantly trying to repair what is our weakness or repair our flaws, and instead of leaning into our strengths. And I want to ask again, because I think there's probably countless people who are listening who are on a journey right now of saying, you know what, I know what, and I'll say this sort of loosely in finger quotes, but I know what's wrong with me. I know my weakness. I know sort of these flaws, and I'm trying to repair them. Why instead, and I know I asked this already, why instead should they focus on, no, double down on what you're great at, what you're exceptional at?
Because it really is. It's proven. It's where you have the potential to be most successful. Mm-hmm. And I think a great way to think of it is think about something that you are not good at and just take that. Or maybe you are good at it, but it doesn't energize you, because that's really what a strength is. You're good at it and it energizes you. So take something that either you're good at that doesn't energize you, or something that you're just not naturally good at. And then think about, what if you really worked hard on developing that talent? You put hours of time into it. Would you get better? Absolutely, you would get better. Sure, you would get above average probably. But the difference is that when you take your time and your energy and development focus in an area that you already have a natural talent, it no longer becomes how long will it take? It starts to really become a question of, well, how far can I take this now? Because your strength, it'll not only get above average, it's going to keep raising its lid and getting better and better and better over time. And then that's going to be combined with the engagement that you feel when you're doing it. So it all connects together, and it's aligned also with our well-being.
I think it was Malcolm Gladwell, 10,000 hours to develop a strength, or to establish that, exceptional at something, right? To develop that tipping point, I believe it was. Do you believe it takes that long for a leader to fully develop that strength, or is there a different timeline that you've seen in working with people?
I don't think I ever put a timeline on people or myself, because leadership and development, it's forever. There's a great lesson that I learned from my mentor called the law of the lid, LID. And when you think about that, we all have a lid on our leadership based on how successful and effective we are as a leader. And when we really develop that, it's infinite, because there's always new things to be learning and growing. And as leaders, we can only take people as far as we've ever been ourselves. And Brad, think about this. What happens often, and I've seen this in my career, and I see it today, is leaders stop developing and growing because they think they've reached the goal when they get that promotion or that title or that paycheck that they've been working so hard for. And then they stop the learning part. And then unfortunately what happens is everyone that they're leading doesn't grow either. And they've created this lid on their team, their organization, or their association that they're leading. Yeah. And so a funny term for it is destination disease. Like they've arrived. They think they've arrived, but they haven't.
Gosh, you're speaking my language. So I'm a huge fan of the book, The Slight Edge, all about getting 1% better and sort of how that compounds on itself. And I strive to try to learn something every day, right? What can we learn just a little bit better? In my world, in marketing, things change so quickly, right? If I stopped learning 5 years ago, I wouldn't have the job that I have today. I would have been outpaced by everybody else around me, as would everybody at Team Haley. If we just fundamentally stopped saying, listen, we're not going to learn anymore. This is what we do. This is the marketing we offer. There is no evolution of Haley marketing. And for a lot of businesses, gosh, thinking about, what did you call it? The destination? How did you refer to that again?
It's a term that John Maxwell uses. It's called destination disease.
Yeah. I hate that, but I agree with it so much. I hate it because I know that so many people see it as true, right? You finally made it. And if anything, that's just the beginning.
Love it. Love it. You got me thinking about this. I get fired up, Brad, because when I'm working with someone, I want my best to be their beginning. And so that ceiling becomes their floor. And if we are truly working and growing and always trying to pour more knowledge and skill into ourselves, then that's where when we show up for someone else, we really are at the best that we can be for that person. And this is so true, especially when it comes to hiring people. So think about this, and especially in the staffing industry, is I would think back about doing interviews for people that I was hiring on my team. And let's just say as a leader, I was a level number 6 on a scale of 1 to 10 if I'm looking at my lid of my leadership and how effective I am. Well, if someone came in that I've been recruiting that has truly effectiveness and success as a leader that is a level 8 and I'm a level 6, a level 8 leader isn't going to want to work for a level 6 leader. Sure. So we have to always be growing and getting better, because if we want to recruit the best talent, then the best talent doesn't want to work with someone that's not going to teach them something. And so that really comes into the recruiting process when you think about it.
How do you avoid burnout with a mindset of constantly getting better and seeing, and I operate like this quite a bit. I've talked about this on the show before. Friends, if you've listened to our other show, Insights, Matt and I talk about this all the time. I never really reward myself for the destination. It's probably a character flaw that I have, but I'm always thinking about the next step. So how do you, Kelly, propose that individuals who have sort of this, I'm constantly getting better, I understand the growth mindset, how do you help them, me, get away from that burnout feeling of, listen, there's never a destination, because listen, I know you just ran a half marathon, but you know the goal is now 14 miles. I know the goal is now 15 miles.
Yeah. I'm already guessing what one of your strengths are. I'm going to guess you're an achiever. And
I've actually never taken the test. I was going to allude to that near the end of this conversation. I've never taken one. Yeah,
I'm totally feeling you're an achiever. So I can relate to this because one of my strengths is called maximizer. And what that really means is I'm someone that I don't do mediocrity. I just don't. And anything that I do, and I'm always striving to take it to that next level. So there's always so many ways we can focus on that. But as I've gotten older, I think about all the time and the energy I put into building my career. And, you know, there were days that I was just so exhausted where I just was just burnout and done. Yeah. And part of that, honestly, was I was focusing in areas more than focusing in areas of my areas that were not strengths for me. And that was part of the burnout that I was having, because I didn't feel energized doing it. But now looking forward, where I know my strengths, that's still reality. You know, I'm building a business. I'm a mom with 2 teenagers, and think about the time and energy that is. And, just life in general. And the way I look at it now is I'm really clear on what I value. I am crystal clear on what I value, and I needed to get really clear on what I valued. And I do value hard work, and I do value getting my business to the next level, but I value my family. I value my faith. I value taking care of my health as well. And I think a lot of leaders sometimes need to take a moment and press pause and really do a values checkup on where we stand in our lives. And part of being a great leader is taking care of ourselves. And what does that really mean? That means I have to be intentional on that. And that means that I put scheduled on my calendar that I have blocked time. And if it goes on my calendar, it gets honored. It's not just something that I think about and then I don't pay attention to. That also means I do take time off at times. And I think a lot of leaders need to set that example, because I'll speak for myself. I thought if I showed up to my team that I was going to work hard, and that would set the example, that meant, oh, I'm a hard worker. Well, everybody will follow me. But what I wasn't doing was showing them that it's okay to take a break too, and setting that example, because I think people follow what they see. And if they're afraid that no one else is taking a break, especially the leader, are they allowed? And so it's extremely intentional for me the later I get into my life. And it goes on my calendar because things that I value more than what I used to. And that's just honest.
It's interesting. I haven't shared this I've talked about it on the podcast, but I'm training for a marathon next year. And one thought that I've had consistently while I'm running is that I need to find my calm and find my energy. Mm-hmm. And a lot of what you're talking sort of follows that methodology of what calms you, what's your reset button, and also what gets you fired up and charged up, and where can you dial in and get your energy from. And it's just some thoughts I've been having while I'm zoning out on the road. And it's interesting that we as leaders often are running at 100 miles an hour, right? Yeah. And we're not signaling to our teams, even if we're off, maybe we're sending emails, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're checking in on LinkedIn, we're making a phone call. Oh, I'm off, but I have time for this one meeting. But off is off. But it's also finding your calm. It's finding what off looks like to you, and we all need to find that. I totally subscribe to that methodology.
It's true. I mean, it's the same thing that we hear a million times when we get on the airplane. We got to buckle, put our oxygen mask on first. And
always.
We just can't show up. It goes right back to the engagement piece. If I'm coming to work every day and feeling just burnout and just overworked or undervalued, I'm never going to be what I need to be authentically in front of my team. And if I'm showing up and masking that, almost like looking at the warning light in a car, what do we do sometimes, Brad? Sometimes we put black tape over it. Because we don't want others to see, or we think it's just going to fix itself. And when it comes to burnout, you can't manage burnout. Managing something is just letting it continue on the way that it's always been. That's where the leadership comes in, and it goes back to self-leadership. You have to lead yourself first, and that's how you get through challenges. You can't manage it because it's just going to stay the way it was. You're managing what's already there.
Kelly, what does the conversation for a, let's say, junior level recruiter look like? They're listening to this, they're watching on YouTube right now. They're listening and they're saying, I need to do this. I need to take control of my life. I need to be the CEO of my life. I'm feeling burnt out. I'm playing to my weaknesses, not my strengths. What does the conversation for them look like to their boss who might not have this methodology?
Yeah, and it's going to be based on the boss they have too. So here's my thought. You are you. And you know what you need in your life. Now, honor your leader. Always honor your leader. But if you're feeling that way, you have to have an honest conversation with someone that is leading you. And if your leader genuinely cares for you, because there are some that absolutely will, and then there are some that it's like, I don't have time for this. But if your leader genuinely cares for you, they'll want to understand more. So my advice to you is don't let that go for too long because you're afraid to say something and think you'll be judged, because you might be judged and someone may not like it, but you have to control where you feel best. And in this industry, we all know it's highly competitive. And why spend years of your life working with someone that's not valuing you as a person when you're doing great work?
Love that thought. What about on the individual side of things? Again, can an individualized strength be a weakness on a team?
Can an individualized strength be a weakness on a team? Well, there's 34 strengths when I'm looking at strengths in a Clifton perspective, and every strength brings value. There's no one that's better than another. So it's really, how can you use the strengths that you bring? And we have dominant strengths, we have supporting strengths, and then we have lesser strengths, which are our weaknesses. How can you use your most dominant strengths that you bring to the work that you're paid to do every day? And
interesting.
There's value in what you can do. It's really just a mindset of being self-aware to understand what are those strengths, and then how can you use them in your recruiting process, in your business development process, or whatever role that you're playing in the industry. So, but you gotta first understand you. And most people, Brad, never take the time to really understand who they are. They take an assessment, or they think they do, but they never really put the work into what does it really mean about them, or work with a coach, for example, and understand how do they really understand how to get the maximum productivity that they can have being their best authentic self?
So let's catch that route. So I would assume the first step is taking the assessment, correct?
If you want to know your strengths, my best advice is take the Clifton Strengths Assessment. You can take the top 5 or you can take the full 34. You're just starting out. Top 5 is great. Just start with that.
Okay. So you find your strengths, then what?
Then you find your strengths, then you're going to read your report. Sit down and read it and really start to understand what it's telling you about you. And what you're going to really see is this is individualized to you. This is not like an assessment that everyone in 5 million is going to be this, or your strengths are unique to you. And there's not a person on the planet that has the same strength as you that shows up the way that you do. So read it, understand it, dig into it. And then my next step, honestly, would be if you really want to develop yourself, do you have resources in your company that can help you? And if not, sometimes you got to go outside, and maybe that means investing in a coach yourself, or your organization may be willing to invest in you and getting a coach or sending you to learning and development programs. So look at your options, because there are options.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back. Maybe I have taken the test, but or the assessment rather. I certainly have not put full thought into it though. And I should. And that's, Kelly, kind of why I want to talk to you is learning the next steps, learning the path, learning where we should go from there. I have one very, very kind of direct question as it relates to recruiters that's a little bit different. We're going to kind of switch topics here, but I know sort of interviewing 101. Kelly, tell me about your strengths. Tell me about your weaknesses, right? Is that a throwaway question in 2024? Should we even be asking that during an interview process anymore?
If I'm interviewing you or someone's interviewing me, I'm someone that I want to know this, because especially if I'm leading you, I need to know who you are. How can I lead you best if I don't understand who you are? And as a leader, I should be asking you these questions too. Yeah. Like, where do you find it? One of the questions I would ask if I was doing a weekly one-on-one would be, what did you love about the work that you did last week most? Tell me. What brought you the energy? And then tell me, what are the tasks or things that you had to focus on that drained you? And as a recruiter, I should know that, because I should be paying attention to that. But also as a leader, I should be absolutely asking that, because where am I going to get my best performance out of you, or your best performance, where you feel like I care about you, and also you feel like you are coming to work doing what you do best, and I'm valuing you for that and recognizing it.
We've talked about that on Insights before. We've talked about it, though, in the sense of how do you then deploy AI to kick those tasks that you don't want to do? So that's the direction that we took a couple shows ago, Matt and I. But to have a scratch pad on the side of your desk and literally track your day. What are you excited about on a scale of 1 to 10, right? What did you do from 8 to 8:15? Did you enjoy it? Yes or no? If it's a no, okay, well, can we kick that to somebody else? Can we get it to somebody else? Can we bring in AI? What route does that look like? That's what we've talked about before. Mm-hmm. But I love the thought of a leader then saying, okay, show me that paper. And let's think about where you can excel, and how do I get you into a role where you do more of that and less of the stuff that you don't like to do?
That's a leader I'd want to work for. 100%. That is someone I want to work for, because it absolutely shows that they're interested in me and they want to lead me in the way that works best for me. And leadership is not a one size fits all. It is an individualized approach for anyone that you're leading. And if you're leading people the same way, then you're not getting the best of them in that process and in your leadership. So we've got to start taking time to understand more. And just thinking about my days and years in staffing and why people would call us to find jobs. The number one reason is they didn't like where they were working. And what does that really mean? They didn't like the leader that they were working with. And so leaders out there, whatever industry you're in, if you're leading, it matters. And so you have great responsibility in a role as a leader. And we've got to really continue to evolve and get better so we can attract the best talent, because It's competitive. We all know that.
Should we be looking at the strengths of the temporary employees we're placing as well? I know in maybe a long-winded way to get to this question, but in a lot of ways, I need 50 people to go from picker packers, right? I'm thinking real warehouse staffing, short-term temporary assignment, move things point A to point B. Is that sort of work different than direct hire and looking at strengths for different individuals? And I hope I made sense with that question. It was a little long-winded.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because if I were doing it today and I'm trying to just knock out a big project, that really is a task that I've got to get done, and I've got to get people that can get the work done. And if I'm looking at a direct hire, I feel that's a different scenario. If it's going to be a long-term trying to fit within the culture, I need someone that is going to align with our values, that's going to align with the teams that we work with. And I need someone also that wants to come to work with us because they see that we align with them. It's a two-way street on the interview. I might be interviewing them, but the candidate should be interviewing us. And if they understand who they are, they're going to ask really good questions. And if I understand, or if I need to understand who they are, I'm going to ask them questions more than just checking off things on their resume. I want to hire a person. I don't want to hire a resume.
Love that line. Kelly, before I let you go, before I get you to our rapid fire round, I want to give you the opportunity to share a little bit about yourself directly from you. Tell the listeners who you are and how you can help.
Oh, so I'm Kelly Merbler, based here in West Palm Beach, Florida. I am the founder of the Kelly Merbler Company. After 21 years spending in a successful staffing career, I decided to go out on my own, honestly, because I saw a need for the organizations that we were finding talent for. They needed help with retention. They needed help with workforce development. And I saw such a need. Being a futuristic person, I saw the need. And I decided to create it because I love developing people. I love developing teams and building cultures around strengths that we've been talking about. I'm also someone, if you want to connect with me, LinkedIn. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. And so under Kelly Merbler, come find me. But my top 5 strengths, since we're talking about strengths and they're on my coffee mug: futuristic, maximizer, belief, arranger, and activator. So those are the strengths that I bring to this conversation and to leadership.
Kelly, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. Again, if you want to get a hold of Kelly, reach out to her on LinkedIn. We'll also put a link to your direct website in the show notes. So if anybody wants to learn more about Kelly Merbler, they know exactly how to get a hold of you. Kelly, before I let you go, I want to run you through our rapid fire round if you got a couple seconds here.
Let's do it. Let's go.
The first one book that has fundamentally changed your life.
I always keep it on my desk. It's always here. The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by the amazing John Maxwell.
Why?
It taught me how to be a leader. Everything I first learned about leadership, I really read in that book, and just it all made sense because I was leading incorrectly before. I wasn't leading to lead people. I was leading to push KPIs. And I believe that KPIs are beautiful. We need them. We need accountability, and key performance indicators drive accountability. And leadership needs that. But I believe in a KPI now that I call keep people inspired. And I believe that leadership is all about helping people where they want to go. And if I help them do that, they're going to help drive the KPIs.
Excellent. And Kelly, one piece of advice that you would give to somebody just starting in staffing and recruiting, what are you going to tell them?
Buckle up. You're going to learn so much. Literally, if you can work in staffing, I say this to so many people, you can do any job in the world. And literally just go in with an open mind, have a great mentor, surround yourself with people, not only in the staffing industry, get out of the bubble and learn from people outside of the industry. And my gosh, you are not only going to have such a great experience learning the ropes, but you're going to really just see the impact that you can make too.
She's Kelly Merbler of the Kelly Merbler Company. Kelly, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show and taking the stage with me. Take care.
Thanks, Brad. You too.